It's Dynasty word association time here. That and more this week on the Footballguys Dynasty Show. And Jordan, we are coming up with the words that matter, the words that pay with some of our best Dynasty players and divisive situations. First up, Mr. Darren Waller.
Elite. 2.05 is his career yards per route run, 96th percentile. He's targeted on 24% of his routes in his career. That's 95th percentile. It's actually 98th percentile when you look at guys who actually qualified a little bit, having a little bit more of a career than just your regular wide receivers. When you look even at some of the receiving grades, for example, he's a 99th percentile guy in terms of PFF receiving grade as well. So just some additional confirmation there. I think he's an elite player and has an elite ceiling and is being priced like he doesn't. And that's the perfect bet in Dynasty right now in terms of trying to take a swing, because I don't think you bottom out with him not producing an elite season, but he still has that in his range of outcomes and at his cost. That's the right bet to make.
Wow. My word. This might be the biggest we've disagreed in quite some time. I'm going to go with careful. I think with Darren Waller, you have to be careful because I am really worried about Davante Adams coming into this offense. An elite wide receiver, Darren Waller has excelled this entire time because, and what's the perfect formula? Good enough quarterback, non-prototypical wide receiver one, or maybe not even really having a wide receiver one. That's the formula for an elite tight end. Waller has had that this entire time, and things are changing. Could Derek Carr elevate and fuel all of this? Yes. Could Davante Adams take a step back from what we've seen in Green Bay? Yes. But looking at similar historical situations where you say, we're going to get a wide receiver one for fantasy, the quarterback's going to not be elite, but be good. This is really risky to assume the same results out of that tight end position and in Darren Waller in this case. I think there's going to be a big loser between Adams, Renfrow, and Waller. Now, the big loser part, in my opinion, for Renfrow, he's going to take a step back. It's a matter of how much. But if he's some in the top 40, 45, 50 wide receivers and Adams is doing his thing, there has to be a loser. And I think it's Darren Waller. I think you have to be careful. He's exiting the historical prime window for these peak seasons, these giant seasons at age 30. So it could happen. But I think the assumption that he's going to be part of that big four, big five, big six, whatever it is, I think he is probably the riskiest one of that bucket based on all these factors. Be careful.
I can appreciate that. I would just point to a couple of things. When you go back to his big season last in 2020, when he finished just behind, he finished up there at the top of the position, just behind Kelsey, basically, with kind of that runaway tight end 2 finish. When you look at that, right, he had 140 targets in that season. And when you actually pull back the screen a little bit in terms of looking at their offense, they ranked 22nd dropbacks that year. So I think when you look at that, you could say, all right, yeah, the volume thing is there wasn't a ton of guys around. A, you need to be really good to capitalize on an opportunity like that. And B, even if he does come back to the pack a little bit more, I still think that there's plenty of room in that offense for 3 guys, right? There's plenty of room in that offense for 3 guys. We see historically, we see a handful of teams get above 60% of their targets going to 3 guys in a year. It's 4 or 5 teams. This kind of seems like one of those teams that's loaded up in that way.
Well, then Derek Carr is probably the answer, to be honest. I mean,
right.
We could be going back to that MVP season plus. We could be going back to that level. And I would argue this is easily his best collection of weapons that he's had. So
and even at his cost, I don't think in terms of where Waller's at, it's all upside. I mean, he's priced at tight end 6, and that's behind Hawkinson. Right? One of these guys.
I just think there's people that don't think he's 6. I'm just saying, there's some people that might be in the 3-4 camp. They might view all 6 of those as one big tier. That's the thing I really want to caution people, is that the assumption that Waller will be equal to all those guys. I think his floor is a little lower than all those guys. I think that getting wide tight end 1, tight end 2, the formula really isn't there for a tighter window. Like Kelsey has a really tight window, in my opinion. It's tight in 1, maybe 2, not really 3. Like it's really tough. And I think Waller is one of the bigger spread guys when you say it maybe doesn't go up to tight end 2, and maybe it does go down to tight end 7 or 8, which I think is meaningful within that if you view it as a big 6.
He's closer to Dalton Schultz, who's actually going 1 pick behind him in startup drafts over the past month, than he is to TJ Hawkinson, who's going a round and a half plus. Yeah. Or basically a round and a half ahead of him. Right. And I just like when you look at guys in the range, I think tight end is a combination of 2 things. You look at guys who have elite profiles, and you look at them when they're depressed in cost. And those are the guys that you pick. Or you just try and aggregate targets later on at the position, right? You don't try and sort out, that Dalton Schultz is going to be, top 5 of the league in volume, right? You make a different bet later on, but you make the bet that this guy has an elite profile. And because there's really 2 combinations to hitting big at the tight end position. It's the super efficiency seasons. I mean, those were Kelsey, those were Andrews. I mean, Kittle has those, right? Goddard has those in his range of outcomes. Waller has had those. And then there's your aggregators, right? There's your guys you do a ton of volume with. Like those are Logan Thomas and those are Dalton Schultz, who they don't really do a ton in terms of above of high level stuff, but they produce a lot because they get a lot of they run a lot of routes and get a lot of targets.
Or you get the big touchdown season,
right? Or the tight end season. There's really 3. I guess you're right. There's 3. There's basically 3 lanes, right? There's the Tanyan lane, the Logan Thomas lane, and then there's the elite lane of guys that are excellent. But
only one of those stabilizes over multiple years. Only one of those profiles really stabilizes over a greater sample size of 2, 3, 4 year run that we've seen from guys. All right. Next one is up, and it is Zach Wilson. So Zach Wilson, what is your associated word? Be careful, be friendly. Sorry, Joe.
I thought this was, I thought you were supposed to answer this one first. So that's what I was.
Okay.
Well. But I'll go first. Okay. I'm intrigued. He has me intrigued because the amount of weapons around him are pretty good, and they've done a lot of stuff to add around him. And is there an elite playmaker? No, but this kind of looks like some of the other builds we've seen, right? We've seen stuff with guys like, this is a little bit different. I think it's a better version of what Jacksonville has done. I think it's a similar in some ways to the way that Buffalo built around Josh Allen, which is just keep bringing in a bunch of weapons, right? Just keep kind of replenishing and just see what you can get to stick. And then hopefully one of them, then they landed at Diggs, right? But you just kind of keep addressing the skill positions. And I think that they've done a really good job of doing that. So, and he's in the news recently, so it's fun to talk about. He's intriguing.
My word is going to be assumptive. I think that he goes into the big, giant, young quarterback. Boy, I could squint. I could see him doing it. We know from classes that, 5 guys go in the top 15. That doesn't mean 5 hits. I think it's the Big Ben, Eli Manning, Rivers class was one of the best in terms of, it seems like almost everybody hit, to a strong degree. That's not commonplace. Out of 5, you might get 2, you might get 3, somewhere in that zone. We're not talking about the 101 who has a little bit of an edge over 102, 103 of a class at the quarterback position. And I keep going back to that they are all risky. All these rookies from 2021 are risky. And Wilson you can sugarcoat it all you want. When you compare meaningful round 1 guys, day 2 guys that ended up playing early, what they did their rookie year, Wilson is near the bottom in the last, 10, 15, 20 years of what he did. The thing I like to cover is the touchdown interception rate ratio. And 1-1 is the NFL average. 0.65 for Zach Wilson. I'm not going to be an apologist for Justin Fields, who was bad. Trevor Lawrence was bad. Davis Mills was better, but bad. Mac Jones was better, but bad. These guys weren't on some big success track. Pivotal year 2s, and Trey Lance didn't play enough. So Zach Wilson is in that bucket. Did they build around him? Yes. Did they build around him more than these other guys? Yes. Situationally, you would think that he has a chance to succeed here. He should succeed. There's a lot of pedigree that has been put around him. They have addressed every single spot. Tight end 1, tight end 2. Corey Davis is relatively new. You've got a top 10 pick. You got Elijah Moore coming into year 2, meaningful capital. They've replenished everything. Breece Hall, Everything is new. That doesn't mean it's going to work. That still doesn't mean everything's going to work. He was bad as a rookie. That means it's a leap of faith. Let's call him Baby Mahomes. Let's say he's got the greatest arm talent. Doesn't mean anything if he doesn't put together. He made bonehead plays. He's a young quarterback, and we know it's the hardest position, frankly, on the planet to play. So to just say this guy, I'm just going to point like Babe Ruth, this guy is going to win. This guy's going to succeed. I will say one thing I like, palatable price point. Instead of Fields, instead of Lance, we're not getting all nutty. I think he's going behind Mac Jones too, right?
Oh, yeah, he's going way
down.
Like
QB 18, 19, 20, something like that maybe?
He's got a median of 18 over the past month, right next to Mac Jones, actually.
At least it's palatable. That's the best thing I'll say. But again, assumptive. This whole just like anointing a guy, I mean, you don't have to do it. Is Carr that much more expensive? Is Kirk Cousins that much more expensive? Is Aaron Rodgers that much more expensive? We've said it before, quarterback, you just don't have to take these big giant swings. You don't have to do it. So I'll just say I don't play the game, but at least he's affordable comparatively. So my word is assumptive.
So in Superflex over the past month, by the way, 312. So Zach Wilson, 504, quarterback 18. Derek Carr, 312. Aaron Rodgers, just the guys you mentioned, 503. And actually Kirk Cousins was 512. Interestingly, Kenny Pickett, 704. Another one, like if you want to kind of take that swing, like just put your analytics hat on for a second. Who's had more starts left in their career? Zach Wilson or Jameis Winston? Because I know that that's a player that like we've sort of roller coastered on, but
I love him this year.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if he comes back up top 10. Watch this.
Don't be surprised if he's
the weapons are so good. So good. I almost put Jameis Winston in here. Right. Yeah. Did you say Kirk Cousins is less?
Kirk Cousins is right at the number.
Yeah.
510. He's a half a round later.
Yeah. So, I mean, what are the odds right now? If you just went straight up, Kirk Cousins or Zach Wilson, better season?
Oh, Kirk Cousins.
Like, and your answer, I think, was appropriate. Like, Kirk Cousins.
Right.
Like, everything aligns for Kirk Cousins too, but he's actually been there, done that many, many times.
Right.
Wilson needs to do it for his first time, and you know what? That's the toughest one. Is there a song like "First Time's the Hardest"? First one's the hardest. There's got to be. There's got to be. Yeah, first cut is the deepest. There you go. The cut is getting into the top 6 or top 12. Very difficult. First cut is the deepest for Kirk Cousins. I mean, come on. He's been a max guy for a while. He's been a big season hunter for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But he's 34, I guess, or just not super exciting. Nothing really changed. He's just going to do it with. He's just going to kill you with Dalvin Cook and Thielen and Jefferson, just like he's done before. Mm-hmm. So it's not super exciting.
Right.
All right. Next player up, Travis Etienne.
He's confusing to me because on one hand, I should like him. I think he's a depressed price guy on really good pedigree who hasn't shown us that he can't play. And you still look at guys, for example, if you just use the base rates, which is something I use a ton of. You had a really good quote earlier this week on Twitter that just said something to the effect of like people spend too much time studying stuff and overthinking stuff. And I think it was a Twitter poll, do people over or underthink Dynasty? And I was like, you should just use base rates and then go for a bike ride. Right. And it'll save you all your time.
I think you want people to copy what you do. You're like, you looked at some base rates and then you shut the computer and then you went for a bike ride.
Right. Just on my way I go. And that's right. And so I'm just looking at guys who haven't done it through year one that are first round running backs. And that'll give you a pretty good idea of just the historical number. And you can sort of go from there. And you look at that number for a guy like Etienne, it's 68%, which is well above what second.
And being a year one miss is not his fault. He literally missed the whole thing, a la Jamal Lewis and some of these other guys. It's a red shirt.
You go to that number and you say, from that point, you say, okay, well, I could probably move that up because he hasn't showed me that it was bad performance. It was injury related. But let's just take
they didn't splash the pot. They already had James Robinson. Right. They didn't go back to the well with a day 2 pick or something or a notable free agent signing.
Right.
Sorry, Snoop Connor.
The thing that gives me some pause is the changing coaching staff. And
they didn't spend the first round pick. Some knucklehead did.
Correct. Yes. That's That sentence.
You bring that every time we talk Travis Etienne. That's the one thing you say. You said this is not the team that drafted him in the first round.
Yeah, I mean it's the front office that did, but it's not the knucklehead that did.
He was, but to be fair, if we go back to grinding the mocks and mock draft data, Etienne was right there. So if Jacksonville didn't take him, if Jacksonville didn't take right, but if Jacksonville didn't take him, the point was that's where he was projected to go. This wasn't a Clyde Edwards-Helaire type situation.
That's true.
It was Etienne, it was Najee Harris, and they were both going to go really high.
That's true.
All right, my word for Travis Etienne: faith. You need to have faith, and it's kind of the same thing you're saying. Round one running back. The one thing, 4-year player. That's not super ideal. It's not overly common, but have faith in no Urban Meyer, the 101 quarterback. Jacksonville highly likely to be better. I know that's a very low bar, but to be better. More shades from what we saw when they beat the Colts in the final week of the season. That is kind of the direction we're moving. The weapons improved. They certainly address things. You can quibble that they maybe should have done different things, but better. So if the passing game is better, Etienne is healthy. You have a round one running back with a 101 entering year 2 quarterback, new everything. And the factory reset is real. And Etienne has profit and upside potential beyond where he's currently valued. So all those are reasons to have faith in basically the process. Not Philadelphia 76ers process, but just the process of, like you said, pedigree. What is the probability with knowing nothing else? And I think sometimes we can get in the weeds of storylines and why it won't work and look for excuses and pick apart every single thing. Like you said, is it simple or is it complicated? And you can kind of make it as much either one as you want. And I think Etienne is one of the keep it simple. You drafted him highly last year. Nothing's really happened. You stuck a pin in him. Here we are today. And almost pretend it's his rookie year. And he still might be around Najee Harris's age from when he was a rookie. So again, he's on the older side, but he still hasn't played. So red shirt applies here. All right, I will go for
better. I feel better. I needed a little bit of reassurance there. So
I will go first on this next one. Last one, Mr. Aaron Rodgers. And my word associated is going to be pre-rebound, because I think the market is really interesting. You have an all-time player, and everything is kind of set up for him to have a down year, right? Mm-hmm. So here's the interesting part. We're getting age discount already. We've already had one dip in his mid-30s when he had that, what was it, the 25 over 2 year? Not enough touchdowns.
Right.
He was really good, but not enough touchdowns.
Right.
And he didn't run for 800 yards. So we got to move him down. And you know what? Old quarterbacks, they have a hard time coming back up unless you're Tom Brady and you retire 3 times. So Aaron Rodgers is at this age that he's already affordable. He's already a pretty crushing deal. And I just keep playing out in my head with this ragtag bunch of weapons. How could he possibly create, how could he be top 5? Mm-hmm. How is he going to fuel a top 12, 18 kind of season out of one of these ragtag wide receivers? Or is Big Bob Tonyan going to be a top 5 or 6 tight end again? Like, something's got to give. There's got to be a better way. So I think with Aaron Rodgers, the way he's valued right now, I view him almost in pre-rebound. Jordan, I'm already ready. With the lawnmower, I'm already priming this thing. Like, he is going to be such a value. Can we get to January already? Just tell me how many titles I win this year. Can we get to January and I'll enter 5 startup drafts right now, because Aaron Rodgers is going to fall multiple rounds in Superflex startup drafts. Like, give it to me right now. He's QB what? He's already in the mid-teens, for goodness sake.
Yeah,
he for him to rise in positional ADP, he's got to keep doing the things he's doing, right? He's too old. So prepare for Aaron Rodgers, all-timer, Oracle level. He's going to be like QB 20 plus in January. I'm calling it now. He is going to be, Jordan, this is too easy. Honestly, it feels like cheat code stuff going on. This offseason was easier. I have a premonition. It's going to be even easier next year. Even easier. Wait till Zeke is going to be 28, still doing all the same stuff. He's going to be like round 10 or 11. You're going to be able to get Aaron Rodgers in like round 8 or 9 or 10. I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be nutty stuff.
Right.
Nutty stuff. Aaron Rodgers is going to go. He's going to go. I'm going to call it right now. He's going to go 25/4, and everyone is going to lose their mind about how he's horrible. And they're not going to have a top 24 wide receiver. Tanyan's going to be like tight end 16, but they're still going to go to the playoffs. They're going to lose in the playoffs. Everything's going to be the same. Nothing's changed. 39-year-old Aaron Rodgers, and they're going to say, dump this guy. Can't draft him. That's what we're going to be. January, get ready.
He's going to throw for like 30 touchdowns. And it's going to be a combination of like, you're going to get 10 from Allen Lazard. You're going to get like 6 from Tanyan. You're going to get 10 from the running backs. And you're going to get, Sammy Watkins is going to kick in a couple.
He's going to get 4, 2,
right.
2
and he's
for,
going to throw for like 32, 33 touchdowns. And it's going to be like, all right.
Is that going to be enough though? He's still going to drop, right?
Oh yeah, my word's depreciating. So yeah, I mean that's where he is. But I mean the question that I would have is, and when you look at guys in his range historically, they lack upside and at the dynasty cost. So that's really the question that you have with a guy like Aaron Rodgers is, yes, he's probably going to outproduce his cost, but is it going to make a big difference for you? Right? That's really the bet that you have to be comfortable with making. Because if you want to pivot, right, now's like you just said, my word's depreciating and he's going to be falling in price. It's going to be tougher to make that deal after this year. The question is what are you trying to solve for a quarterback? Are you trying to solve
I think if you're in now, you're in forever. I think it's a Brady thing. I think it's a Breeze thing. I think it's a Roethlisberger thing. I think if you're in right now, then either A, decide before the season starts, or B, make your bed and lie in it. Because when it's just nutty. If he goes into the 20s, I just think you can't pivot off of that. You can't pivot off of the Brady, Rodgers, Breeze profile when it gets that cheap.
I wonder if the pivot isn't now. Right? It's tough to make this pivot in July. But
he's going around Cousins. He's going a little ahead of Cousins. I think it's too risky to go to Winston. I think both of those guys could easily outproduce him this year.
Right.
It's possible.
I mean, the pivot that I would make is I would say, all right, like and this is the mistake I think that people make when they rebuild, is they try and sell into, right? It's like swimming into the current, right? It's a bad idea. When you should sell is, I mean, and there's a ton of opportunities for this, right? When Lamar Jackson got hurt last year, right? And you sell to the Lamar Jackson, right? That's when you take your profit. Or when Dak
you mean
Prescott
to sell in general or sell to get Lamar Jackson?
You could do both. I mean, that would be the pounce point, right? Is to try and go get an elite quarterback, a younger quarterback, to do that deal.
Who gets hurt this year? Yeah.
Right. You and there will be 2 or 3 guys that this happens to, right? That they either decline in value or they aren't as good.
Or if Watson's announced that he has a 12-game suspension.
Right. So what I would think about doing is I would pre-plan for that, because what I would do, I would plan for that to be my pivot, right? If I'm going to say, hey, listen, I got to get younger at quarterback. I want someone I want to sort of use Rodgers as a cash out piece. The pivot to make isn't just to trade him and then take a loss on the season. Figure out a way to backfill him right now, right? So whether that's a guy like Jameis Winston, whether that's, you take another shot on a guy like Zach Wilson and hope to be right at a cheaper cost, or, you do some of these other things. You take a shot further down at a Matt Ryan, right? You sort of replenish, right? You bring in some reinforcements in advance to make your strike, right? And so then you say, okay, I can still compete, but I can afford to lose Rodgers in the immediate term for a higher ceiling long-term upgrade. That's the way that I would make the pivot, but it's really tough to make the pivot right now. You have to do it when he's attractive in season to somebody, and that's the situation that you'll find yourself in.
Wow, you're really talking down on Rodgers a little bit. Like the tone of this is like the ceiling's never coming back.
I don't think it's never coming back, but I mean, Rodgers is flake. I mean, when we were discussing this, I was like, so you mean flake? There's a chance that Rodgers retires after the year. I mean, I've gotten to a point where I trust him from a production perspective, but I don't know what he's going to do. Right? He might.
I just think it's a dangerous game. It's a dangerous game. Whether it's been Brady, Breeze, Big Ben, now Rodgers. I mean, I don't know if this has to do with Andrew Luck. Where it's just like, hey, every season you never know. You never know with anybody type thing. But I mean, I think he's in the higher tier. I mean, this is like Tony Gonzalez. Don't pretend like he's not coming back. Ever.
No, I'm not.
And that's probably the play.
Back. I'm not pretending like he's not coming back. What I would say though is like right now, you look at him and he's at 503 in startup drafts, right? What him plus a first right now, that sort of gets you up into what? I mean, Stafford's in the late second, right? You're sort of looking at guys sort of in that range. You think about what that does, right? If you make that type of deal,
right, you're buying 4 more years.
Right. Well, when the quarterback, not even necessarily Stafford, but if it's somebody else that's injured that sees that type of price drop and it's Rodgers plus that first, and that person is a first round startup pick, right? If that's Watson, or if that's Dak Prescott gets hurt, if that's whoever in that, if Kyler Murray gets hurt, if Lamar Jackson gets hurt, whoever it is, right, that's up in that range, and you can pull off a deal like that, it ups your ceiling and it makes you younger. And we see that, I mean, there is a relationship that as quarterbacks get down into the teens and into the 20s, some of the ceiling stuff does come off. Rodgers could be the exception to that, but I would just be careful. I think that if you're looking for a sell window, I'm not necessarily running for the exits, but if you're looking for a sell window, your sell window is probably not now, it's in season, and make a big swing. And I would preempt that by, backfilling my roster. Like I talked
But we're also both talking about how this could be a down year for him. So
Correct.
That plan may be difficult if he's not producing at a high level. And to be fair, early in the season might be the time that he's not doing that because a lot of new stuff, and he's very much a creature of habit. And, we saw he's had Adams for quite some time, and just, this is the first time. This is a very new environment for him that's all new. So September might actually be the weakest span of time to kind of pull off what you're saying, to actually execute. Because if he's not producing at an elite level, I think it's going to be hard to truly do that pivot at a great price in terms of leveraging that for someone that now has a need and now they can buy a guy that's producing at that level. All right. Chad Parsons, Jordan McNamara, episode 111 of the Football Guys Dynasty Show. Reminder about the Football Guys official gear and merch store, shop.footballguys.com. The classic Black Eye Joe logo. There's new things added all the time over there. It's been a budding, bustling shop there to support and show your love for Football Guys. Quality designs and materials. Exactly. Jordan wears it almost every week. You got hats, shirts, outerwear, coffee mugs, and more. Shop.footballguys.com. So we got some
tough
great
to look
trades.
this good, Chad. I mean, it's tough to look this good in this gear, but it helps. Hey, I'll give you a sell window on when to sell Rodgers, by the way. Okay. September 18th, week 2, home against the Chicago Bears in prime time. How about right after that game?
After 4 touchdowns in that game?
After 4 touchdowns.
Okay. All right. We got the FFPC, Superflex, and Triflex there. 223 first for Jalen Waddle. I'm going to queue up. I'm going to put a quarter in the jukebox of Jordan, and he's going to say something about selling rookie picks for wide receivers. Go.
I mean, if you can't do these deals. Right. I mean, that's the thing that you can't sell.
Well, you specifically can't do this one. This is the one you can't do. Right. There's some that are more palatable that you're like, you still shouldn't.
Right.
But this is a stranger danger one right here.
Yeah. This is.
And I like Waddle. I like the Waddle profile, but man, it stinks to high heaven right now.
Yes, it does. I would be very, very cautious on this. Not very many people in a Superflex format are worth 2 future firsts.
Right.
There's just not that many guys.
And it's shallow, and you're spending 2 firsts where you probably want to spend it at super premium quarterback profile, especially running back. But yeah, here's the thing. I've been going down this rabbit hole and doing a series on making assumptions for NFL passing games. And what does that look like for this year? And when I play this out and say Tua does not take a massive breakout step forward, if that's the assumption, and you have to assume Tyreek Hill is the wide receiver 1. You have to, based on what they've done, and they literally just paid up to acquire him. That if Waddle is the wide receiver 2 and Tua is not top 10, top 12, big step forward, Waddle loses big. Mm-hmm. The odds of him being top 24, maybe even top 36, pretty low. So be super careful with Jalen Waddle, because 2 firsts, you might get to November and he might not be worth 1. Mm-hmm. in season. And then you get to January, he's worth maybe 1.
Mm-hmm.
I just, you got to be really careful with this. Really careful.
There's more risk of him, the bottom falling out of his price than there is like risk of him being more
like
expensive.
a Juju sort of thing. Like, oh, look at that early flash. But you know what? The perfect storm happened, and this is not the perfect storm.
Sure.
So, I mean, you could say it's not about Waddle, and Tyreek Hill was a very special case of a player being available. Okay, but it happened. All that happened. They were willing to listen, and they were willing to take it on. And you've got to assume Hill number 1, Waddle number 2. And do you really think Tua is going to fuel 2 top 18 guys or whatever threshold you want to put on it? Man, I am super skeptical of that.
Yes.
All right, we've got 1 quarterback, Dalvin Cook, for Deshaun Watson, Michael Carter, and a 23 first.
In a scenario like this, I'd be curious to know how many roster spots, because I think stashing a Watson is an asset if he's going to miss half season plus. If it's a 20-man FFPC type format, that can be harder to do. Same thing with Michael Carter, right? If that's the format, right? He's a injury away guy. That's nice. But you could roster any of those and not pay the price of Dalvin Cook for him. So I look at this in very much the first for Dalvin Cook type situation is sort of the context. And I think the other guys add a little bit onto that, but I would be sort of cautious around because we don't know the depth of the roster. And assuming it's because it's 1 quarterback, I would assume that it's shallower. I think if you're in a winning window right now, I think Dalvin Cook can help you. I was doing some of the stuff and I was actually, I just submitted it today actually for the site. So it should be coming up here soon. A series of articles on touchdown scoring. And I'm stunned at what Dalvin Cook did last year, considering how bad his touchdown puck luck was, to use your phrase. I think he was targeted twice inside the red zone. He just scored a disproportionately low number of touchdowns given his attempts in the red zone and close in. I just think he's due for a bigger uptick season. The question that I would have is how good is this situation? How sticky is he there? Right, they can get out of him, and if they try and turn the page next year
because we're both bullish on Minnesota, and correct. I mean, Dalvin Cook, top 3 running back this year, range of outcomes right there.
Yes,
but here's the one thing that you didn't really hit on: 27-year-old running back, and you're paying a first plus,
right?
And we
can you pay less for Fournette? Can you pay less for Connor and open up similar kind of windows? I like the Cook. I like Cook in terms of I think that there's a really solid window for him this year. The problem is I don't really like going about it this way.
Right. Doing
there's
this
other guys I think
plan.
you could do it right. And I think there's other ways you can do it cheaper. Right. That would sort of be the pivot.
And here's the thing.
I don't think it's that much to pay, but I just don't like this type of construct.
If you're a stronger team, it is one thing we didn't say, it's 1 quarterback. So if you're a contending team, you're putting an auto start guy with a big ceiling into your lineup and you didn't give one up. So if this ends up 109, 111, I'm sure you're going to be fine. I'm sure you're going to feel fine about it. When you get all the way there, you're going to feel fine. Because at best, what is this? A round 1 wide receiver? Just take your shot, I guess. And or it's hopefully a day 2 running back. Mm-hmm. So that's not really a lot to give up for Dalvin Cook. Right. But like we're saying, I mean, did you explore all avenues? Was Zeke cheaper? And here's the thing: just one offshoot because we don't get to talk Michael Carter much. Hated him as a starter, but now that he's falling.
Super saucy.
Really like him as an injury away guy that we saw a little bit. I think he can play. He's got, early day 3 pedigree. I think there's some stuff there. Right. So I can't wait for him to fall a little more. I can't wait for next year, honestly, because let's say Breece Hall looks pretty good in spots. Tevin Coleman probably gone. That depth chart clears up a little bit. Get clarified Michael Carter, but yet he's running back, 62 in Dynasty. Mm-hmm. All right, I'm in for this.
He's like David Montgomery All-Star. We're like, we don't love him coming in. We're like, everyone,
it's like Latavius Murray. Latavius Murray hated the price the entire time he was the starter, and then the moment he becomes a backup, you're one of my favorite players.
Yes.
All right, we got one more here. 1 quarterback and half PPR. If there's a format for Derrick Henry, this is close to it. Unless we go non-PPR and we roll it back 20 years. But we got Derrick Henry for Chris Carson, not a big part. 23 first and a 24 first, and both projected late, but it's 2 years in advance, so who knows?
I view Carson in this deal as basically a roster spot, right? You're clearing a roster spot with this. That's how I view this. The neck issue that he has, right? I think we have a mutual friend who had this issue, and it gives me some pause based on some of their descriptions about him returning. So I'm not a huge and that situation, right? They drafted Kenneth Walker, they brought back Penny. It kind of should be a signal to us that we shouldn't place a ton of faith in Carson. I would say both projected late on the first. We know how that is, especially a year in advance, right? Don't necessarily believe those things a year in advance. We treat them much more random. You're paying. I have more faith in, I think, Dalvin Cook than I do Derrick Henry, which seems a little odd to say.
Well, he's got a lot of ways to win.
Yes.
And produce. Derrick Henry has one way.
Right. And we saw a lot of regression last year from Derrick Henry on an efficiency basis. The offense got worse.
He's 28.
This team could be
gone.
in a rougher direction, I think. Give me the picks again. Did you explore all avenues? Right. That's the thing. Did you explore? Does one of these first get you Fournette? Does one of these first?
What? Let me ask you this. What running backs in this format would cost more than this? Let's do that list, right? Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
Dramatic pause. See, who costs more than this?
Right.
Eckler certainly doesn't. You could do one first, right? And something else.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not a first and a first and a second. The point is, I think a first and a second get a lot of running backs in this format.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Why Henry?
Right.
Why Henry?
Yeah. I would think a lot of, right. Again, you can just shop around, right? Like just shop around and even if you settle on that Cook deal, at least it's on less first, right?
That should be that's almost like a drinking game. We say that probably almost every show. Mm-hmm. I would say 90% of shows. Did they shop? Especially when you're buying. This is not someone selling future first. You literally were buying Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it was the Derrick Henry guy going fishing, being like, oh, let me see. Is anyone willing to give 2 firsts?
Right.
Maybe. But the point is, on the other end of this, you should have said, I could give my first for many things at this swap meet. Why this? So that's, I don't know. I don't want to use the lazy word, but I just wonder. Because one avenue we've talked about is if you get this in your inbox and you like it, how about you hold it? You press the pause button. You put them on hold on that phone call for just a few minutes. Maybe you send a few phone calls. Maybe you send a few trade offers out there and you poke around. A couple hours later, you can circle right back and accept this. Mm-hmm. But throw some firsts around, you're going to get people's attention.
Right.
At a minimum, you probably get a running back that you like as much, maybe more, and then someone better than Chris Carson. Oh, sorry. But you maybe assess wide receiver or something else is what I meant. Yeah.
Right. And the other thing I would say about this is you can do this deal for probably cheaper in season. Right, because the person that has Derrick Henry that's not competing, or whoever has that type of running back that's not competing, is going to be in a rush to sell them to get a future asset.
26, 27, 28 years old. Yeah.
Right. At least at that point, whether or not you're contending, where the pick's going to, you have a better idea where the pick's going to be, and you have a better idea whether the player's going to help you.
But yeah, right? Zeke, Fournette, Eckler. Just rattle off 4 or 5. Connor.
Totally.
One of these guys is going to be on a team that starts out 1-3.
Correct. And you want to be their best friend at the end of September.
Yeah. And that's when if they start out 0-2, send the offer.
Correct.
Next week, check to see if they get back to 500. If they don't, you're sending more offers every week. All right. Easiest way, you want to sign up for that Footballguys free email update, daily news to your inbox, culled by Joe Bryant. We've got the analysis that you need. Hey, you would have missed N'Keal Harry being traded for a 7th round pick in 2029 right now. And suddenly, miraculously, he's going to be valuable as the Bears wide receiver 2 or 7.
What an indictment that is, huh? You traded a 7th round pick for N'Keal Harry, and he becomes your wide receiver 2 instantaneously.
Yeah. So the point is, you're not going to miss that, and really, you're not going to miss the important news. Sorry, N'Keal Harry. When it comes time for you to not miss the important news, trust me, the Footballguys daily email update has you covered. the top right side of the Football Guys home page. Let's get to some quotes from the Football Guys Dynasty Forum this week. This could be a whole show. Age is relevant only so far as each owner cares.
Wow, age is relevant is it's just a number. I think there is definitely a value placed upon age, right? And we see it. I think it's multiple rounds worth of discount you get depending on how you want to measure it. But especially at wide receiver, people get out of control about young wide receivers, and it depends what game you want to play, right? If being interesting on Twitter, or if being popular in terms of the trade baits, or taking pictures of your roster and sending them around to group me's is what is interesting to you, then go with the young wide receivers, because you'll win the Twitter polls, right? You'll win the Reddit comments. You'll win, everyone's adulation because you have a sexy roster. But if you want to win in December, if you want to win in January, pick guys that are good, right? That have proven that they're good. And the curious part about this is you're getting them later on in drafts because everyone's not interested in them. And so, right, it's just boring. Like Keenan Allen isn't like Keenan Allen. It's like, it's awesome. Like,
I want the next guy. I don't want the current guy. I want the next guy. It's not, I'm not saying it's a solved issue, because there's risk he could get hurt and all that stuff. But I mean, he's a problem solver, right? Mike Evans. And there was some great stuff PFF put out this week. And it was remarkable when you actually looked at at Mike Evans in one-on-one situations, right? In man-on-man situations. He had the best success rate. He had the best success rate by PFF's grading. And the even better part of it was that he actually faced the toughest corners in those situations. So he was the best, and he had faced the best, right? Which is just an unreal combination of accomplishment. And people write that dude off, right? And basically, it's funny because those stats also pointed out, and there's a Twitter thread. I actually put it on. You can find it on my Twitter timeline. But there's also some stuff about who has actually manufactured yards, and he has essentially 0 manufactured yards. And Chris Godwin is like in the top 3 of the league in the past 3 years. It's all manufactured. Yeah. It's all manufactured. And you just look at that and you're like I actually think Mike Evans is going to be one of these guys that we're just going to kind of whistle past, like, oh, whatever, like he was fine. We're going to actually look back when we get some more advanced stats, like late, it's kind of like the basketball stuff where we look back and we see guys like Reggie Miller were better, than we gave him credit for along the way. I think we're going to be in that situation with Mike Evans. We're going to realize just how good he was. Well, you're saying you're saying other people, because this is the wrong room.
Market.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The general population there. He is the king of 15 to 20 yard deep ends.
Mm-hmm.
He gets behind that second level and he just eats. He goes down immediately, but he just eats.
Right.
He's been doing that for now most of a decade. Cannot stop him.
Right.
He's 6'5". You shouldn't be able to move and maul guys like that. Yeah, he's like old school. That's what guys used to like when you used to look for alpha wide receivers. That's what you looked for, 6'3" plus. And now they come in all shapes and sizes. The NFL is a completely different game. Mike Evans travels his profile travels to whatever you want to. You want to put him back in 1972. Oh, he grabs as much as the cornerback would grab. Trust me. So anyway,
here's this. I'll read you a stat. Since 2019, there are eight wide receivers with 300 plus routes in single man coverage who have won their route at least 50% of the time. Mike Evans leads with 55.6. The guys behind him, Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, Deontay Johnson, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Amari Cooper, interestingly, and Odell Beckham Jr. He ranks the highest in terms of opposing corner strength during that time. And by the way, Deontay Johnson is incredibly low on that list. So, just some really good stuff here. This is from PFF_move from Timo Risque at PFF.
One other thing I saw on Twitter this week, Jordan, is some big giant aggregate tracker of dynasty trades. And one thing they looked at was that the idea of the flip running back, the injury away running back that they are liquid trading assets. And they said there's really not some data to support that they are easily traded for, say, rookie picks, or they're easily traded to flip to wide receiver or something like that in season. And my first thought was, well, that's because the team is using them, because now you just plug that right into your lineup. And there was some pushback on either side that, well, that one player and that one start, and they're very limiting in the kind of the way they were discussing it. But it was basically that one player in that 1 week. I mean, that's not going to make the difference in the season type stuff. And my first thought, and just whatever thoughts you have, was, well, it doesn't, you don't know. The point is you don't know, and you kind of want as many bullets as you possibly can throw. Like you run out of bullets, then what do? You throw the gun at them. Then what do? You grab something off the wall. You throw them at it. Then what do? You lock yourself in the bathroom. Then you're looking for stuff you can stab them with when they finally get through there. Then you go, can I get out of this window? No, it's sealed shut. Okay, can I break the window? Like you're just constantly doing all this stuff. So we say it all the time. You never know how many you're going to need. So this whole idea of, well, now I got some streaming start from Darrell Williams in week 7. Well, you probably want to start him. So, yeah, there's plenty of them that aren't flippable per se or traded for more than a third or whatever, but there's more than one in game than what you can flip them for that random week before they start.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to look at that. I'll see if you can pass that link along, because I'd be curious to see that. But I mean, we should be. I don't think that that's true in terms of that they don't have trade value, because we've done it. But the other thing is, and maybe it's becoming less so, but I do think that we have had success with that, depending on what you're looking for. And again, for us, a lot of times it's like, hey, we'll take, for some of these guys, we'll take a third and recycle the roster spot. You know what I mean? Like, fine. Like,
and waiver dollars.
Start, right? Shallower, we'll recycle the roster spot and just go over and over. And then those things add up, right? So we're death by 1,000 paper cuts with it. I think if you're looking for first or the other stuff, maybe that's more difficult. But I do think it's usable. And plus, like, we're using it as a roster construction edge, right? I am building my assumptions.
It's not really like a cash register, an ATM that we're trying to get a future third, because guess what the future third is? Injury away running back. So I don't what are we doing here? It's a hamster wheel.
You, right? It's Darrell Williams. It's
season time. Booker. It's time to win.
Right. It's over and over and over again. And it's starting 6 running backs in a week, right? Because it's very much different, right? It allows you to do a roster construction in a way that's very different, much more efficient, and has that guy you
probably got for free. The interesting is that guy that we're talking about, and if you say he's only worth a third plus another injury away running back that currently is still injury away, well, you probably got the original, the OG guy right now. You got him off the waiver wire at some point, or a throw into a trade. So you technically got him for nothing. So now he's worth something, whether it's your lineup or it's trading him. But yeah, like, it's just, there's no better feeling than every flex being a running back, right? That should actually be a shirt. Like every flex should be a running back. Like some sort of something along those lines.
I'm gonna get that. Gonna get on that.
Yeah. But yeah. So the in game being flip them, because now you're pushing it out all the way. I do think there is power to the getting the next injury away guy. Like, but that's an interesting exercise. If you go through all the backup running backs and say, if a season-ending injury occurs, who would be worth a first, or who do we think could be worth a first? It's a very short list, because they have to be young enough. Like, first of all, it comes to mind that someone like Tony Pollard or Alexander Madison are candidates. They're young enough. You could see them as future NFL starters. And if you gave them an entire, actually, let me ask this: James Conner, Le'Veon. Well, okay, that was different because Le'Veon Bell was week to week, or at least it was like a few weeks, and then it was week to week at that point. But Conner got the whole year, but it wasn't declarative at the beginning, so that's not apples to apples. But how many others do you think? I mean, even in Arizona, Darrell Williams, not even close. He wouldn't pull a first. Conner out the day before the season starts.
Right.
He can't do anything. Williams would still not be worth a first, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. And then you run into you kind of start running into some of the how do you define these guys, right? So that's the other thing, right? Is James Cook an injury away guy, or is he something more than that? He's probably something more than that, right? So you start.
Well, it's
How
an
many
ambiguous
true
depth chart. There's not a clear like if you view it as
right.
ambiguous, then it's not injury away, right?
Or he's even a satellite player. But then again, you start seeing some stuff that you look at, like who's the clear guy in Miami, right? What is it with the Patriots, right? That's an interesting one. If Breece Hall went down, what about Michael Carter, right? Gus Edwards probably knows. Samaje Perine probably know. If Nick Chubb tomorrow, could Kareem Hunt? So you start looking around, and you're like, okay, there's a handful of these situations that actually have backup guys. It might be 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that.
But honestly, they're guys that are worth a second or third even without the injury. Is probably one way to look at it. What's their standalone, no injury value?
Right.
And then you start looking at if it were to occur, it bumps them up.
Look at the NFC North for a second. If David Montgomery got injured tomorrow, would Khalil Herbert pull it first? I mean, there's a shot that that's true. What about Jamal Williams? Probably not. AJ Dillon, yes. Madison, probably. Right. So you start looking around. In Tampa as well. Rashad White could potentially pull it first without even seeing him play. Right. So you start looking around, and I think you could tell certain stories where they are, where they are actually pulling more first than we give them credit for. So we don't see a ton of the situations, right? That's the problem. Like we don't get these in 5 years ago, we had a ton of these injuries. 5, 10, 15 years ago, we had a ton of these injuries in preseason. We don't get them as much anymore because guys don't play in the preseason games, right? That's the secret, right? Sometimes the market changes because of those things. And I think that's one of those aspects to that.
Last one for Dynasty quotes from the Footballguys forum this week. Swift's on-paper value is nowhere near his real-world value. So I think he's referencing Dynasty, not like in the NFL purposes. And I would even throw in Javonte Williams, that you say on paper or in startups, like this is where they go. And I see Swift and Javonte Williams not often pull that value in trading. So I think there's a divide between, oh, look, here's where their ADP is. Here's where they go in startups. But then you get to an existing league and them pulling that cost in a dynasty trade, I don't really see it.
I think I had more success earlier on in the offseason selling Swift. I will say, in terms of I actually think he's got a ton of ceiling this year, and I might try and actually pivot down to him. I could use a scenario to go from Taylor to Swift plus. I'm going to explore some of those situations. But when you look, they were fourth in terms of expected points, the running back position last year. I think that, and basically essentially did that with virtually no red zone work. So you start looking at scenarios where people could really outperform expectation or outperform their costs. Swift strikes me as one of those guys. And honestly, if you look at a guy like Jonathan Taylor, last year was really good. I don't think it was necessarily an elite running back one season by nearly any historical measure. And I don't see how he does a ton better than that. And where you look at Swift, does Swift have the nuclear codes, right? Does he have that? And I think that he does, especially in,
well, like you said, the big passing game work.
Correct.
Being a baby McCaffrey,
right,
is more in his DNA than Taylor.
Being Kamara, right? I think Kamara is the way where you have a quarterback that's what they want to do, is sort of emphasize a lot of that stuff with Kamara, right? He wants to throw short. He wants to throw behind the line of scrimmage. Like that, they do a ton of that stuff, right? He's a guy that could bring that out of Swift, right? That's I think where you look at that and you say there's a lot there to like. And I was sort of skeptical of him early on because he was going running back 2, running back 3. Now I do think he's slid a little bit, and I'm open to acquiring him and thinking about some different ways to go about it.
Yeah, and running back certainly is one where you say, holding on to the absolute peak year. And if you think that is close to what it was for Jonathan Taylor at this point in time, certainly he provides you a lot of options and avenues to, like you said, pivot, address your team in multiple ways. If you do the classic two-way go of getting something in a future first, all of a sudden you're covering yourself on multiple fronts. So yeah, definitely to be in play there. And we always talk about the DNA and the equation it takes to have an elite running back one season. So it's easier to do. You better catch a bunch of passes. And there's rare exceptions to do that. The thing that when you were like, oh yeah, it's just kind of like one of those, it's good, but those rare big running back one seasons, like I was just thinking, McCaffrey says, "Hold my beer." Like,
right.
McCaffrey's like he plays 4 or 5 games, and it was just enough last year to remind you, it's like, yeah, this is easy.
Yeah, I'm dominant. I'm dominant.
He's like we should say McCaffrey is the Brooks Koepka of the running back position. It's like this game's easy. I don't know what you guys are thinking. I catch more passes than almost every single wide receiver in the league. That's easy.
100%.
I play 2 positions. Hold my
yeah. Hey, so we got a question this week about you as a babysitter and about what that would look like. And if I sort of handed my 4 and 1-year-old off to you, sort of what your reaction to that would be. And
Jordan,
I gotta say, I want to see it.
Jordan, I'm going to share something with you. And so this is what is it? 2 truths and a lie or something? This is the truth thing. I have never held a baby in my life.
Okay. Well, they're not babies. They're not babies. They're.
I have never. Okay. Actually, I would have just if I had no filter, I would have just stepped in a hole in the whole earth and said the wrong thing because I was about to say I have not. I was going to say something about a small child, and you can't say that, and it was meant in no harm at all. But it was
Joe.
Sorry, Joe. I didn't say it. I did not say it. Chad from 5 years ago would have said it. Anyway, now I just sweat and say I didn't say it. But again, kids are like, for me being here's what I'll say. Are you the disciplinarian or are you the funsy one? I don't know if every parental unit has one of each. I don't know if that works like that.
I'm more the disciplinarian. I gotta say, I think it's hilarious when my wife cracks the whip. It's on the kids in terms of like the discipline stuff.
It's just fun to watch.
Out of it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, I'm more the disciplinarian. I would say, yeah.
Because in my head, I have lots of rules, but I don't like. I don't know. I kind of think everyone kind of makes their own decisions. I know that's a horrible idea with people under the age of 18, even above the age of 18. That's a horrible idea for people to set their own ground rules. As you said, right? You can't have them ruling the castle. You just cannot. That's when it's like they can't eat for breakfast and they're going to wear, they're going to wear the ballerina suit to school. Like you can't, there's certain things you can't let them decide. So I will just say, I don't think I would be a good babysitter. And certainly anyone needs to have their head examined if they were to honestly ask me. So
I have a Florida wedding, and we're gonna swing by with the kids and
Florida wedding. Well, you know what? Almost every part of Florida is like 2 or 3 hours away. So
it's perfect. Yeah,
exactly. Are you golfing this time? Last time you came here,
it's not for another year. And I'm in the wedding. They didn't
plan a year in advance.
Yeah, I know.
Goodness.
You know how much of thinking and concern I'm going to have about this wedding.
Do you know how much planning that they are going to do for this wedding if it's still
how many?
A year out?
Oh, it's going to be horrible. You know how many? But this is great. You got plenty of time to take like a babysitting class, get a little experience before that. This will be awesome. This will be a good
babysitting class. What are you saying? A class? Is this like master class? Is it online? What is this training?
You gotta go. You learn how to.
All I think I need to do is you just need to be on a video call like for half a weekend, and I'll just watch. I think that'll be my class. One more thing, you know what I really regret? You were here in Florida, and you went on some golfing trip. Did you not? You came down here and you golfed for, was it a few days? Years ago, right? Years ago. I'm gonna guess 2017.
Yeah.
What year? Really?
17.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, I nailed it.
Yeah.
And you know what I regret? I can't remember how difficult it would have been or how difficult it was, but I regret doing whatever I needed to do. Because what I've realized is when people live far away, and you can make every excuse every time if you want to. But again, we've had 0 chances since then.
Well, it's funny because I had seen you weeks before then. I
had was it really after the Senior Bowl or something?
Yeah, I had literally seen you weeks before.
And it was like that March or something. It was like, I just saw you.
We haven't actually seen each other in person.
And now it's been forever. I will say the video stuff, and doing a show every single week, it bridges the gap quite a bit.
Right.
But just the whole, but you know, but I will tell you, I had a golfing experience. Did I tell you before I left, I had a bunch of friends and they go golfing every single week and stuff. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I said yes. I proactively said, when are you going? And before I left, I was like, a bucket list thing. I'm going with you guys. You tell me what we're supposed to do. Someone give me some clubs and let's go. And you know what? It was so fun, Jordan. It was fun because I don't golf all the time. I haven't golfed in years. And I shot like a 104. But you know what? I had moments. I made some putts and I made some shots and it was a lot of crap. But it was some good stuff. But you know what? Like the hanging out, I totally get golf. It's not like, I know you can take it seriously and try to become the best golfer you can be and all this stuff. But the cool part to me was you spent like 3.5 hours and your cart buddy, you're talking between shots, you're talking between holes, you're feeling the breeze. Hopefully it's good weather. It was that day. And it's like, if he shot an 85 and I shot 105, it didn't really matter, you know? And they were playing all these stupid games of like, you owe $1 if you do this or don't do this or like whatever. I just came with some money and like we ended up hanging out afterwards at some tiki bar. Like, but the point is, it was like the adventure of the day. Like, I don't know if I could do it 3 times a week, but that was one of the situations. I'm freaking glad I said yes.
Yeah.
And I made a point. Like, I could have easily, like every other Thursday or whatever day it was, I could have just been like, no, it's outside of the comfort zone, whatever. And I wish I had said yes that March or April or whatever of 2017, because that could have been you and your peeps, and I would have been tagging along or whatever, and I shot 105. But it would have been fun.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I think we had oysters.
And now it might be 2023.
Well, you still owe me. We blew way over the time.
Why do I owe you this again?
We bet on
some Senior Bowl.
You had something, and I picked John Ross to run to win the 40 at his combine.
And I had like a field or something.
Somebody else. No, you had somebody. It was like a 2 for 2 for something, and I won. So you still owe me a dozen oysters, which I need to cash in at some point.
There we go. Yeah, they have oysters here,
yes,
and they sure have it in Mobile. So yeah, we gotta. Anyway, so 2023. It sounds like it's on the books. I will make it happen. Do you know when it is? Spring, summer? Let me guess.
What's that? The golf trip?
Oh, the wedding thing.
Oh, the wedding thing. November.
Year.
It's November.
Next November?
Yes.
Oh my God!
In season.
16 months. 16 months ahead of time. All right.
Correct. It's a Friday wedding, which is
even
more interesting. And I said, at least I don't have to travel on a
Sunday.
That's
not bad. That's not bad.
That's helpful.
Friday is probably the day you'd pick.
Right. So and I got to be there on Thursday to participate in the pre-wedding shenanigans.
All right. That's not bad either. You set lineups early. You're okay.
Yes, we can do this. We can
when are you leaving? When are you leaving to go back? Fly back Saturday.
Maybe I could do Sunday. I could, I love that idea. I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. See, these are the things I've got like 16 months to worry about.
You fly at 2 p.m. Seriously, no, that's not. I would, be there in the morning and then fly in the afternoon. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
But then you got to figure out how to set lineups. Do you want to set lineups in the airport?
Oh my God. If you've ever had to set dozens of lineups on your phone, it is horrible.
No, there's no way. I can't do it on the phone.
I've tried to do it before.
I have to do it on my computer.
And by the way, sorry, Cecil. I know once I went past 1 hour, I was like, I'm just going to blow past the stop sign. It's not happening. I'm talking about golf from minute 58 to minute 3, hour 3. It's not blowing through it. For all the times we have wrapped it up right at 57 or 58.
July 12th.
I'm cashing in all those chips. Cashing in all those chips here. Yeah, exactly. Don't worry. We'll put in a 40-minute show. We'll be all right.
We'll balance it.
All right. Looking for November. I can't believe they said it that far in advance.
November 2023. Yeah.
Just one last question. How confident are you they're going to still be together?
I'm confident.
That's 16 months of life and chaos. Exactly. That's a long time.
It's a lot of months.
Hopefully they're not co-GMs on a team this year, because that might change some things.
He does see. He works for the Jets, so it's a fun.
Okay.
It's always a fun me teasing them, him at least about that. Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, any text this week? Any rando text this week about anything?
No, get some info.
No,
access to that. But it's funny because he used to work. He sold tickets for the Lightning for the longest time. Like that's what his job was.
Wow.
And then the Lightning went and won two
in a row, almost a third.
2 in a row. And he left right before that happened. And then he went and worked for the Jets, which I relentlessly tease him about, because not championships in the range of outcomes anytime soon. So yes. So I'll have to ask you about the Wilson stuff. We'll have to see. Maybe we can revisit that.
Absolutely. All right. Jam-packed show. Sorry, Cecil. A few extra minutes of editing, but truly, truly appreciate it. And again, hopefully we've built up a little bit of confidence and trust through 111 episodes. The chat wants us to go another couple hours. I get it. We'll put it in for next week. Again, thanks so much for listening, everybody. In this episode, we discussed dynasty trading. And every once in a while, this is Jordan and myself's chance to get together. It's like our phone call every single week that we get to reconnect before the show, and we just happen to do it during the show a little bit this week. So again,
9:30 on Tuesday nights for like 6 years has literally been like on my calendar. My wife asked me, "Do you have a show tonight?" And I said, "Don't." Isn't it Tuesday?
What day is it? Yeah. How long have you been here? That's always what I do. Do you know what day it is? When it gets to like 3 p.m. on Tuesday, I start talking about Tuesday night recordings, and it's like it's been every Tuesday,
right?
Religiously.
I think I've missed years. One Tuesday. It was when my daughter was born. So,
Death, taxes, Tuesday night. Exactly.
Death, taxes, Tuesday night.
That's what happens. All right. So again, we talked about Dynasty Word Association. We talked about trading future picks, the ways to do it, the ways to shop around, the ways not to do it. Spending multiple for a wide receiver, generally not a great idea. Derrick Henry, pretty interesting there. People paying a couple firsts for him. DeAndre Swift and age at the end. I'm Chad Parsons. He's Jordan McNamara. And until next time, good luck in your Dynasty leagues.